You think the hard part is already behind you. 30 years of saving, decades of contributions, the discipline of not touching it. You did the hard part. This last year is just a formality before the finish line. It isn't. Your last working year is where more retirement plans get quietly damaged than almost any other single year of your working life, and it happens to people who did everything right up to that point. Here's why this year is different from every year before it. Up until now, mistakes were forgiving. You had time to recover from a bad market, an undercontribution, a missed opportunity. This year, decisions you make in the next 12 months lock in for the next 20 or 30. There's no more time to recover from them. That's what makes this year dangerous. Not that the mistakes are bigger, but that the runway to fix them is gone. Let's talk about what those mistakes actually look like, because they're rarely dramatic. They're quiet, procedural, and completely avoidable if you know to look for them. The first is Social Security timing, and it's the one people think they've already figured out. Claim at 62, and your benefit is reduced permanently, not temporarily, permanently, compared to waiting until your full retirement age. Wait past full retirement age, all the way to 70, and your benefit grows by roughly 8% a year through delayed retirement credits. That's not a rumor or a rule of thumb. That's the actual mechanism, and it means the difference between claiming at 62 and claiming at 70 can be worth tens of thousands of dollars in lifetime benefits, depending on how long you live and what else is happening with your income that year. There is no universal right answer here. Someone in poor health, or who needs the income immediately, may have very good reasons to claim early, but it should be a decision, not a default. I want to pause here and say clearly, I'm not a financial advisor, and none of this is a recommendation for your specific situation. Your health, your other income sources, your spouse's benefit, and your tax bracket all change the math. This is the mechanism, not the answer. The answer is something you work out with a professional who can see your full picture. But you can't even ask the right questions if you don't understand what's actually happening underneath the decision. The second mistake is rollover and beneficiary neglect. When you leave your employer, your 401k doesn't automatically know what to do with itself. People leave old accounts sitting with former employers for years, sometimes forgetting they exist, sometimes losing track of the beneficiary designation entirely, which, by the way, overrides whatever your will says. A will does not update a beneficiary form. If you got divorced 15 years ago and never changed that form, your ex-spouse may still be legally entitled to that account, regardless of what any other document says. The third mistake is underestimating required minimum distribution prep. If you're within a few years of RMD age, 73 for most people retiring now, your last working year is the moment to start thinking about Roth conversions, because your income is about to drop for the first time in decades, right before it artificially spikes again once forced withdrawals begin. That window, between your last paycheck and your first RMD, is often the cheapest tax bracket you'll ever see again in retirement. Most people don't realize the window exists until it's already closed. The fourth mistake is healthcare and Medicare timing. If you retire before 65, you have a gap to cover: COBRA, a marketplace plan, or a spouse's coverage, and that gap needs a plan before your last paycheck, not after. And if you're retiring at or near 65, missing your initial Medicare enrollment window can trigger a permanent late enrollment penalty on your Part B premium, one that follows you for the rest of your life, added to every single monthly bill. The fifth mistake is also quiet: leaving your portfolio positioned the way it was 15 years ago, when a market downturn was just a number on a screen you could wait out. In your last working year, a 20% drop right before or right after you retire hits differently than the same drop would have hit at 50. This is what's sometimes called sequence of returns risk. The order losses happen in matters just as much as the average return over time, because you're about to start withdrawing instead of contributing. The sixth mistake, and the one that ties all the others together, is not having a withdrawal order. Most people retire with money spread across three different tax buckets: taxable brokerage accounts, tax-deferred accounts like a traditional 401k, and tax-free accounts like a Roth. Which bucket you pull from first, second, and last in retirement can change your total lifetime tax bill by a meaningful amount, because it determines which years you show high income and which years you show low income. Pull from the wrong bucket in the wrong order, and you can accidentally push yourself into a higher bracket, trigger higher Medicare premiums down the line, or waste years of low-income opportunity that could have gone toward Roth conversions instead. This decision gets made once, informally, by defaults, usually by whichever account happens to have the easiest withdrawal process, unless you deliberately choose otherwise in that last working year. Let's put real numbers on two of these, because the abstract version undersells how much is actually at stake. On Social Security, delayed retirement credits add roughly 8% to your benefit for every year you wait past full retirement age, up until age 70. On a benefit that would have been $2,000 a month at full retirement age, waiting the full 4 years to 70 can push that number above $2,600 a month, a difference that compounds every single month for the rest of your life and your spouse's life, if survivor benefits are in play. On sequence of returns risk, the math is less intuitive, but just as real. Two retirees can have the exact same average return over 20 years and end up in wildly different places, purely because of when the bad years happened. A 20% drop in year one of retirement, while you're withdrawing income, does far more permanent damage than the same 20% drop in year 15, because you're selling more shares at depressed prices to generate the same dollar amount of income. The market doesn't know or care what year of retirement you're in. Your withdrawal strategy has to account for that, because the market won't. Here's what all 6 of these mistakes have in common. None of them are about picking the wrong investment or making some dramatic financial error. They're about paperwork, timing, and decisions that feel small in the moment but compound for decades because there's no more time left to undo them. That's genuinely the hardest thing about this year. It doesn't feel like the most important year of your financial life. It feels like the last stretch of a race you've already basically won. But the decisions sitting quietly in that last 12 months, the beneficiary form you never updated, the claiming age you never actually chose, the Medicare window you almost missed, those are the ones that follow you the longest. If breaking down mechanisms like this, the ones that actually decide how your retirement plays out, rather than headlines designed to scare you or talks, is useful to you, the way to support more of this research is through Patreon, linked below. It's the reason this channel can keep digging into the paperwork nobody else wants to explain, instead of chasing whatever's trending that week. So here's the honest reframe. This isn't the finish line. It's the last year you get to actively steer before the plan runs largely on autopilot. Every mistake on this list is entirely avoidable, and every one of them is currently sitting in a form, a date, or a decision you haven't looked at closely enough yet. None of these 6 things require a complicated financial move. They require an afternoon with your account statements, a beneficiary form, and maybe one conversation with a professional who can look at your specific numbers. That's genuinely it. The damage from these mistakes isn't caused by complexity. It's caused by the assumption that this year is just like every other year, when it's actually the one year where the decisions stop being reversible. You still have time to look. Next year, for most of these, you won't.